I'm going to walk through how Teams work in Proposify if you have that feature in your plan or your account. If you go to settings, and again, if you have the feature turned on, then you'll see there's Teams here, and you can now start creating some teams. So before we begin, if you haven't already seen the roles and permissions video, I highly suggest you check that out first, because roles is sort of the baseline for teams. Teams can exist on their own, but oftentimes you want them working with roles. So let me explain the difference. Roles are basically when you say a person who is this role can do this or that. They're allowed to do this, they're not allowed to do that. Teams are useful if you've got, say, multiple brands or sort of sub-brands or companies that are working all in the same account, or maybe they're just completely different teams in terms of location, like you've got a US sales team and a UK sales team or something like that. Then that would make sense to set them up as separate teams. So let's see what happens when we click Add Teams. It says to add in the team's details. So we'll create the team name. So I'm gonna call this one the US sales team. And we're gonna also create a European sales team as well. So what other options we have are the custom company name. So this would be useful if you've got multiple companies that are all using the same account. Or a custom address. You know, they often might, well, in the case of a US sales team, they would have their own address. Custom domain, so this would be if they had their own URL that they used in client previews, they can do that. You can upload their own logo, which appears in the app and also on the login screen and previews and other places. Custom email design, so you can actually have different email templates that are all look unique to that team. And same thing with currency, you can have a default currency for the team. So of course, if I was a US sales team, I would use USD as my default. This would be fine. And obviously if I create a different team, that's say a European sales team, I would use maybe euros for the default currency, and maybe the prices are formatted a little bit differently. So right from here, I can also assign users to be part of this team. So I'm going to actually, if I click on one of these people, let's say Nick and Kevin, I'm going to put them in the US sales team. The other members don't have a team right now, so I'm just going to leave them. So I'm going to create that team. So the next thing I'm going to do is add a different team and call it the European sales team. And I'm going to leave all this stuff the same for now, but I'm also going to add Ricky and Sandra to be this team that I'm adding. And so now I've got 2 members in the European sales team and 2 members in the US sales team. And I can also see that here, if I click on the user list, I'll see my European sales team and my US sales team. If I click on a user and edit them, I'll also see team in the dropdown. I can also change it from there. So there's different ways to assign a user to a team. So now that we've got users assigned to teams, what else can we do? If we go back to settings, let's click on roles. So this is where it's important, if you haven't already seen the video for how roles work, that you check it out now, because teams and roles do interact a little bit. So I'm going to click on sales agent. Actually, I'm going to click on Sales Manager and see what we've got there. So you might recall when you've seen the roles and permissions video that teams are brought up here in the permissions. So for example, for sales managers, I could say, do I want them to be able to view metrics for the entire account, which would include the US sales team and the European one? Or do I want them to just view their own team's metrics? So for example, a user who's in the US sales team is only going to see the US sales team's metrics. Yes, that makes sense. Same thing with viewing clients. Do I want them to only see their own clients, or also the other teams, only their own teams? Same thing with perhaps users, or maybe I want them to be able to see everybody. That's up to me. And maybe I want them to be able to add, edit, and delete users, but yeah, again, only just for their team. And some other things here as well. I only want the sales manager to view their team's templates, and I only want them to be able to add, edit, and delete those teams' templates. Same thing with proposal permission. So do I want somebody in the US sales team to see every proposal in the whole account? or only their team's proposals. Well, this is a sales manager. If they're a manager, I only want them to view their team's proposals. I don't want them seeing other people's proposals in other teams. And let's save that role. So I'm going to do that for sales manager. I'm also going to do it for sales agent. Sales agents, only their team's metrics, clients, users. We've already taken away this. We only want them viewing their team's templates and they can't edit them. And they can only see their team's proposals. Actually, I'm going to keep it only their own proposals. So that's it for now. So now, of course, if somebody who is a sales agent logs in or a sales manager logs in, they're only going to see their team's information. They're not going to see other teams' information. What I'm going to do now is show you how actually you can lock down content within Proposify to make it only available to a certain team. So for example, if I go here to my templates and I'm going to go to my architectural, I'm going to just delete this here. We don't need two of these. Okay, I've got three different templates: accounting, architecture, and construction equipment. If I click on architecture and edit that template, you'll see, because I've got the roles and permissions and team feature, I've got a lock up here. If I click on the lock, it will say set permissions assigned to teams. So for instance, right here, both teams are checked on, which means they both can see and access this template. If I wanted to say create templates that were specific to a team, then I can just uncheck the team that I don't want them to see that template and perhaps go in a different template and uncheck one team or the other. And it would be the same thing if I went into the content library. If I've got sections here and I don't want certain sections to be available to a certain client level. So for example, let's say I've got a fee table that it's got pricing that's US pricing and I don't want the European team to be able to see that. I can just click on the lock icon here, and here I can uncheck a team who I don't want to have access to it. And then even somebody who does have access to it, say a sales agent, do I want them to be able to view and use that section? Yes. But maybe I don't want them to actually be able to edit that template. So that might be useful. If you want a sales agent to bring in a pricing grid, for example, but you don't want them to be able to change the pricing, then you would click on View. If I clicked Edit, they would be able to drag it into their proposal and edit it. And if I clicked Hide, they just wouldn't see it at all if they were of that role. Sales managers, let's say, yes, we do want them to be able to edit that. So you can set up this kind of granular permission on basically every piece of content in the app. You can do the same thing with fees. I can remove a team from being able to see or access that fee. Snippets, no, we don't have that. And images, no, we don't have that either. Okay, I hope that makes it clear how teams work, and goodbye.